And so I slept on the couch, and that's where Jesse had a piano, and Waylon had that J200 guitar sitting on a stand. And it's Sunday morning. I smell food, and I look up, and it's Waylon and Jesse sitting at the piano singing. And I remember he had this motorcycle on a podium in the house. And so I was looking at it, and I was curious, and I asked Waylon, whose motorcycle is this? And he goes, oh, that's Buddy's. And I go, Buddy who? He goes, looks at me, French guy. He goes, Buddy Holly. I just kind of, and I remember, so I had my Telecaster, right? And she was like, well, we got to have the Guns N' Roses sound. And I said, I love that. And he goes, like a Les Paul. I'm thinking, that's a couple of grand. So I said, well, I'm not going to sell my Telly to buy a Les Paul. I don't know what to do. And he goes, I'll call my dad. So at 2-3 in the morning, here we are in Shooter's studio, a rehearsal space / recording studio. And we got to playing. He picked up a bass, and Lex was on drums, and Lex was like, come on, shred,
Right.
So I'm just,
come on, make me look good.
Right. And so I'm playing and, doing the whole thing. And they're like, so where are you staying? I said, well, at a hostel down the street. And they go, no, you're not. I go, okay, well, because you're coming with us. You're going to play in Stargunn. But everything fell into place because I remember we talked about this. I said, hey, look, this is the deal. I need to get paperwork. I'm only here for a few months. I need to get a work visa. Yeah. I need to get a work visa. I cannot work. Not that I wanted to work, but I cannot work, so I need a place to stay. So basically, Shooter kind of took care of me, don't worry about the rent, and I called my dad, we'll figure it out, the paperwork. So when he told his dad, Waylon, and his mom, Jessie.
And so in your mind, you're sitting there talking to Shooter, who's the son of the narrator of your favorite TV show from as you're a kid.
Yeah.
And now he's going to call that guy, and that guy's going to help you figure out. I bet you were freaking. I bet you're like,
it was exciting.
What's going on?
Everything was 1,000,000 miles an hour. And so when he told his parents, they said, well, that's great. Well, how about you guys come for a weekend and we get to meet him. And so we went over to their house in Chandler, Arizona. We drove there and spent a weekend at Waylon's house. And that was in early July of 2001. So It was a couple of months after, staying in a hostel.
You get to meet Jessie Coulter too.
Yeah.
Were you aware of her at all?
No, but real quick, Shooter is like, hey, here's the albums. Check it out. And I fell in love with Waylon's music and Jessie's music right away too. So we go there and we spend the weekend. And on Saturday night, we went out and, Waylon and Jessie stayed home. And I got drunk. We all got drunk.
Imagine that.
Right? So it was full house. It was band members, family members. So I ended up sleeping on the couch.
Stargunn?
Yeah.
So y'all all went down as a band.
Mm-hmm. And so I slept on the couch. And that's where Jesse had a piano. And Waylon had that J200 guitar sitting on a stand. And it's Sunday morning. I smell food. Like bacon and all that stuff, Jesse's cooking, right? I smell food, and then I hear music. My head is pounding. I'm like, I'm hungover. So I'm in the chorus. I'm like trying to, look at what's going on. Father were playing the, stereo. And I look up, and it's Waylon and Jesse sitting at the piano singing.
Wow.
And everybody else is in the rooms and stuff. I'm on the couch, and my feet are dangling out. I'm looking, and I'm like, well, this is crazy. And I saw the magic. I understood what was going on. Like when I met Waylon, I knew he was not a regular human. He's
got a name on his shirt. He ain't no regular dude.
Right, exactly. But I saw that, and it was cool. They loved me. They adopted me pretty much. They said, you're part of the family.
See, what were they singing? Do you remember?
I think they sang like Storms Never Last, and I don't know what else. I think they only sang a couple of songs.
But you woke up to two of the most iconic figures.
Yeah. And by the time we were there, I knew what was up because, I studied real quick.
Right.
So, and a few things that were kind of crazy. He had like, like you have here, like, things from the past and stuff. And he had like a letter from John Lennon saying how much he loved Waylon, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy.
Wow. That's unbelievable, man.
And I remember he had this motorcycle on a podium in the house. It's like an Ariel motorcycle from the 50s.
A real motorcycle?
Mm-hmm.
On what?
On a podium, like, on a stand. And so I was looking at it and I was curious, and I asked Waylon. So that's me asking him, not Jesse or Shooter or whatever. I asked Waylon, I said, whose motorcycle is this? And he goes, oh, that's Buddy's. And I go, Buddy who? He goes, looks at me, French guy. He goes, Holly, Buddy Holly. I just kind of,
Because you didn't know any of his history. You just knew the records he made.
Well, I knew he had played for Buddy.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I knew that. And so I took a picture on it, because it's just like you're at home, like make yourself at home. So I still have the pictures of me on Buddy Holly's motorcycle, and I'm thinking this is rock and roll history.
Yeah, man.
Because country music is also rock and roll history. They're both
right.
related. And so after that, wrote me a letter for immigration and got work visas and whatnot.
Right.
And played with Shooter for a couple of years. And I remember, so I had my Telecaster, right? And Shooter's like, well, we got to have the Guns N' Roses sound. And I said, I love that. And he goes, like a Les Paul. I'm thinking, well, that's a couple of grand.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I'm not going to sell my Telly to buy a Les Paul. I don't know what to do. And he goes, I'll call my dad. So.
You had a Les Paul hanging around the house?
No, so when being left-handed, So
yeah.
So Waylon ended up calling Gibson and said, I need a left-handed Gibson Les Paul shipped to that address. And so one morning I wake up and Shooter goes, dude, come to the living room. I said, what? And it was a Gibson case, and I opened it up and it was from Waylon. And he had bought me, or I don't know if he paid for it, but it's Waylon, right? But he had gotten me a Gibson Les Paul. And that's all within the first.
I don't get jealous very often, man, but that's.
Well, it's wild, right? It's, but I knew I was lucky. I knew I had not hit the jackpot, because that sounds, a little weird, but I knew I was.
Well, the only thing that didn't come true,
thing
that didn't come true was Stargunn wasn't bigger than Guns N' Roses.
Right.
What happened there, man? Was it like, did you dig the music?
Yeah, because I got to write with Shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't writing lyrics, but I was writing guitar riffs. And
why didn't that work? Just because? Same reason other things don't work?
I think there's a few reasons for that. Because I remember it took me a while because that was my world for 2 years, Stargunn. And then it broke up. And then I'm like, what am I going to do? So it took me a while to get around, the concept of it. But I think really at the end of the day, that was Shooter's high school band. He started it at the end of high school and then moved to LA. But then he got better, and then he got, to find himself. And so that's when he went solo.
Right.
And so it was time to put that aside. But we remained friends and everything. That's when I moved to Texas to go play with Wade.
Right. How'd you know you were going to play with Wade? Like, how'd you connect with him?
Well, that happened it was like circumstantial. So Lex